Guys, I'm going to be honest with you because everybody's noticing it. Every single political commentator in America, every single one of them knows this, that if you do not step out and say things that are radically pro-Israel, or if you are too quiet on certain narratives and they want you to be radically pro-Israel, you can lose everything. That's truth.
So what you are saying to me is that anti-Semitism is this and does not change. What I am saying to you is that the entire world and scholars about anti-Semitism recognize that it is a unique hate. This anti-Semitism is the oldest hate in the world and the hate that mutates.
She dropped out of college.
Wait, please let me finish. If Shmuel
okay, go ahead.
is attacking you, if he is attacking you on any personal way, that doesn't mean it's okay for you to attack him. You know better than that. You teach your children all that better than that.
No, I actually, like everything I'm saying about him, like if this is holy, like, you know, selling butt plugs with your daughter, I don't know.
Okay,
maybe
wait.
you're right. I think it's gross.
Right,
I think it's disgusting. And I do not, it's not the definition of holy in the Christian faith is what I would say.
Yes, the question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt. I think it's I can't know that. Yeah, I mean, she still works for my company. I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
The real shame is that Ben Shapiro, who wears a yarmulke and runs the Daily Wire, created the Daily Wire, continues to employ her. He continues to profit off Jew hatred and anti-Semitism. And Ben, I'm telling you, the righteous God who watches all that we do will never give you or the Daily Wire any blessing from the money you're making off Candace Owens. It's really a shanda. It's shocking that you would be employing an anti-Semite. And you know, Ben Shapiro, you and I both know that if MSNBC or if CNN employed someone who said that they love Kanye West, or employed a host who said they don't know who was right on October 7th, you would be calling them out, Ben Shapiro, on your show every day saying CNN has lost their marbles, and yet you're doing this. It's shocking and disappointing.
Guys, it's Candace. The rumors are true. I am free. Welcome to my locals page.
Oh, well, duh. Everybody should have seen this coming a mile away. Let me just say this. Candace Owens has more balls than any man that I know.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.
Man, welcome back to another episode of the Ruling Class Podcast, or Didi Got a Podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Didi, back up in this with another video. Listen, if you are new to the show, please know we are thirsty to grow and to drink some of this warm water with lemon. You can help me out by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. But don't worry, I'm going to give you a sec to do that. Help me out. Just hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. I really appreciate it. We are trying to get to 50,000 subscribers. Right, and every single subscriber, every single like will greatly help this channel and help this video. So thank you. Thank you. Candace Owens.
Chief, I found Parker.
Where you been? Looking for you all morning. Why don't you pay your phone bill? You're fired.
God damn. You got to be a stupid motherfucker fired on your day off.
Okay, that was a little harsh. And before we get ahead of ourselves, for the sake of this video, I'm going to be using this microphone. The purpose of this microphone is so that the people in the back can hear me. And if you don't know what that means, in the black community, when you say something that's very true and what they like to call preaching, when you're preaching and people are choosing not to hear you, you want to make sure the people in the back can actually hear you because they tend to ignore you. So there's something I've been saying for the past few months about Candace Owens that I believe is now coming to fruition that I'm going to repeat again in this video so that the people can actually hear what I've been saying about Candace Owens and the Daily Wire, right? Candace Owens, political commentator at the Daily Wire, or at least she was as of yesterday morning, has been fired, or that's what a lot of people are headlining their videos and their news articles, saying that she's been fired, but we actually don't know that she's been fired.
Now, all of y'all know that Candace Owens is like my sister. So, of course, I text her. I'm going to let Candace Owens tell y'all what happened. That it ain't my place to try to deduce what happened. Now, what I will say is that it wasn't a firing.
What they have announced is that Candace Owens and the Daily Wire have officially ended their relationship. And over the past few months, I've been covering a lot of things about Candace Owens and the Daily Wire. And to get you caught up so that I don't take too much time, I'm going to have my mans from the news anchor from Breaking Points catch you up real fast.
So this comes after a lot of internal consternation between Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro that has exploded in the open after October the 7th. Candace has been quite vocal in an anti-war stance both on Ukraine and has carried over a lot of that consistency to the war between Israel and Gaza. She's been particularly outspoken about civilian casualties in Gaza and has also been against sending U.S. weapons to Israel. Now, obviously, this all broke out into the open. You'll recall a few months ago when Ben Shapiro was asked on camera and called her comments about Israel, quote, disgraceful. This led to a public spat between the two in which Ben replied to her and said, Candace, you are welcome to quit at any time. There was some speculation that that might have been to involve having to pay her out of her contract. The circumstances, obviously, of her departure are not 100% clear. What we do know, though, is that it came almost immediately after a major fracas, I guess you could say, with the ADL. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Just yesterday, the ADL, the so-called Anti-Defamation League, and one of the most censorious organizations and pro-Israel groups in the U.S., they put out an article stating, quote, white supremacist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes is praising Candace Owens', quote, vitriolic anti-Semitism. It is hardly surprising, but it does set off alarm bells. When bigoted people come together to push an anti-Semitic agenda, it adds fuel to the fire. So Candace replied to this. She says, quote, I do not know Nick Fuentes. You already know that. What I do know is that everyone can see what you guys are doing to me. Your pattern is well established and the world is waking up against it. My crime is having stood up for myself against your network of smears. Now, Candace has particularly come under major fire since October 7th from a lot of these major conservative media or a lot of these conservative organizations or organizations like the ADL, like AIPAC, like the Republican Jewish Coalition and others. They've attacked her relentlessly. She has not given in and in fact has only escalated some of the things that she's talking about. This has led to some major debates on her channel, for example, with rabbis, leading to some, frankly, wild discussions around what exactly constitutes anti-Semitism and doesn't. But most importantly, I think for our purposes, it does seem that she had no idea that yesterday would be her last day. We actually have a clip here that we can play from her very last Daily Wire appearance. She says at the end, I'll see you tomorrow. And she hints at the fact that some of the consternation that she's kind of bubbling to the surface. Let's take a listen.
Thank everybody who has been on this journey with me, people that have supported me. I especially want to thank all of the Jewish people that have been in the comments saying how outraged they are. And I know that it is especially difficult for you guys right now because you are being smeared, you know? I mean, I'm not going to go away. I'm going to use my God-given voice to talk about the things that are important for me. I'm just asking to be left alone, or at least just report the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. But don't worry, because we will see you tomorrow for a brand new episode.
So yeah, it's a lot of things that's been going on over there, and Candace Owens has been delving into a lot of topics. The P. Diddy lawsuit. She's been talking about Jews. She's been talking about Israel. She's been talking about celebrities forever, right? And the October 7th situation was really the turning point for Candace Owens and the Daily Wire because, as you know, Ben Shapiro is a Jew. And if you ask me, he's Israel first, regardless of what he says. But he's American, but he's also from Israel. He has family from Israel. And what was very interesting about this situation is that, you know, a lot of you should know this by now, but the Daily Wire, they're conservatives, and they are supposed to be advocates and supporters of free speech. And they also, Ben Shapiro is known for this phrase. He says facts over feelings. He says facts doesn't care about your feelings. But what has been blatantly obvious since this whole Israel-Hamas war that's been taking place, especially after the October 7th situation, is that Ben Shapiro is a hypocrite, right? He doesn't care about the facts when it comes to the war. And Candace Owens has been very neutral when it comes to it. She simply said, hey, I don't support innocent children on either side being slaughtered. What's the problem with that, right? She says that unaliving innocent children from either side, you're wrong for it. Where is she wrong about that, right? And so a lot of people hop in the comment section to say, well, I shouldn't say a lot. Some people hop in the comment section and saying, well, she don't understand the history.
I love the way that you and Ben Shapiro are able to disagree, but then I guess still have a business relationship, because I saw him recently tell you, I think this was maybe a few months ago, he told you to quit over your Israel coverage, your Palestine Israel coverage.
Yeah.
What was that about?
Well, he told me, the tweet that he responded to was actually just some biblical passages.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought that it was me saying that I had to choose money over I don't know how we interpret it, but it was definitely not. I just meant it as like, peace, calling for peace, because, there was a video circulating of him calling me a disgrace and a faux professional or whatever it was. And I decided to choose peace. And then when I chose peace, he responded to the peace with not peace.
And what history do you need to understand in order to say that innocent children should not be unalived? What history do you need? They're using the children as shields. Bro, the sentiment of her statement in itself is right. Nonetheless, Candace Owens has been criticizing black people for years. In fact, that's, I would argue, part of how she blew up the way that she did. And of course, she has the massively popular Black Lives Matter documentary that came out, I believe, just 2 or 3 years ago, where she pretty much exposed Black Lives Matter, the organization, right, the corporation, and how they were using the funds mostly for transgender causes. A lot of that money, most of that money, if any of that money, I don't think ever went back to the black community. Something that she was saying, to her credit, for years, right? She said that there's corruption wherever there's a lot of black emotion, a lot of black pain, there's probably going to be corruption. There's money to be made, and people are going to show up to corrupt that cause. And that's exactly what happened with Black Lives Matter, the organization. She's been talking about the transgender, the LGBTQ community for years. No backlash, or at least not from the conservative side. No backlash from Daily Wire. But the moment she starts talking about Israel, the moment she starts talking about specific Jews, we're not talking about the Jewish community as a whole, but I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince people of that. We are not dummies. We know that this woman is not talking about all Jews. We know that most times when people talk or criticize a group of people, they're not talking about every person of that race. They're talking about that, like when she agreeing with Kanye West about particular Jews in Hollywood. What are you talking about here? What are you talking about here? You can literally go and trace the very things that she's talking about. What are we talking about here? This woman had a Rabbi Barclay, on her podcast. One of the most mind-boggling and craziest interviews I've ever seen in my life. And if I've never seen a professional victim in my life, this man was the definition of it. First and foremost, him and Candace Owens are on her podcast, and then she asks him, what's the definition of anti-Semitism? What makes a person an anti-Semite? You all are throwing this term around whenever someone criticizes a Jew for anything, a Jewish person for anything. So how about we start off with this? Actually, it was the rabbi's idea, which makes it even more crazy. Let's start off with this. We identify what anti-Semitism means. Let's agree on a definition before we continue this conversation. Listen to this crazy definition.
I actually totally agree with you on that. That is a perfect place to start. Could you provide for us a definition of anti-Semitism?
Absolutely. I really appreciate that, because I think that is the break. If we're not speaking the same language, where can we go, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a man, a blessed memory man named Lord Jonathan Sachs, who was the chief rabbi of England. He had a great line. He really defined anti-Semitism. That anti-Semitism is Jews have no right to exist collectively as Jews with the same rights as other human beings. Which is kind of a weird statement. So let's just track back a bit to understand the history of anti-Semitism. 2,000 years ago, Jews don't accept Jesus as Messiah. For people who do not have faith, as the early Christians, as some of them have faith, some of them accept Jesus, but they don't really in their heart. And you and I both know people like Rob McCoy who accepts it fully in their heart, and other people who are doing it without faith. And they're those who have less faith. The fact that a Jew exists, let alone thrives, is a threat to their faith, because how can the Jew not accept Jesus as God and still thrive, unless he's associated with the devil. So you start having these myths that are created of the Jew being identified with the opposite of God. And the person who translates, St. Jerome, who translates the Vulgate, knows what he's doing is translating wrong. He puts down that when Moses comes down from Mount Sinai, he has horns, okay, Karen, when actually the word was Karan, meaning that light shone from his head. So now by 1144, you have the anti-Semitic myth of Jews have horns and they drink blood. And I know people who've been asked when they went into the army and other places, can I see your horns? So this still exists today in 2024 throughout America. And I don't mean just in little rural areas. It exists today, these myths. That Vulgate Bible is the official Catholic Bible all the way through the 1970s. So it is, you need to understand that that's a piece of it, okay? That they're equated with this kind of hate. Because it's about Jews not having the right to exist collectively, when they live in their little communities in the Middle Ages, anti-Semitism is a hate against their religion. By the time you get to the 18th and 20th centuries, when so many Jews have assimilated, they are in culture, they are in arts, they're in science, it's no longer against them for their religion, it's against them for their race. Because anti-Semitism is the oldest hate in the world and the hate that mutates. In 1948, because remember, it's as Lord Sachs.
Oh, I just want to pause it. You said it's a hate that mutates.
Correct.
So your belief then is that the definition of anti-Semitism can necessarily change. Is that correct?
It's not just my belief. It is the commonly accepted understanding in both the Jewish and academic worlds.
Okay.
This isn't, okay? As I said, that's why I quoted, this is a quote. It's a great thing from Lord Sachs, Jonathan Sachs. It's a great thing from Nihilecka. This is just accepted as the understanding of, a cultural anthropologist.
So I would just say off the bat, I do not accept that definitions can just mutate. That is something that I could debate that on, like the definition of a woman. I mean, and I'm saying not just about Jewish people. I think that we have to have a concrete definition to work with, because then you can just update and say, actually, I've changed that, and now this is what constitutes anti-Semitism.
But Candace, that is the horror of anti-Semitism. So what you are saying to me is that anti-Semitism is this and does not change. What I am saying to you is that the entire world and scholars about anti-Semitism recognize that it is a unique hate. That if you define it as that Jews should not be able to exist collectively, okay, as a collective, they just shouldn't have that right. That changes from the Middle Ages with religion, the 18th through 20th centuries about race, and then after Israel's created, it's a hatred based on the nation. And until that is understood, that it is, this isn't something that's really questioned about among academics, theologians, Jewish scholars. I'm not presenting it. This is why I thought that I'm so optimistic about a dialogue. But I think a part of it is you view that the hate can't mutate. And what I'm trying to tell you is that we have 2,000 years of history that demonstrate the exact opposite.
So, and I'm going to just push back just gently here. For me personally, if I thought that racism could just be an ever-shifting definition based on the experience of Black people, it would be a remarkable power, and I would be able to create something like BLM, which could say that everything was racist. So I am not going to be able to agree that definition should be able to transform according to what's happening during the day. But here's what I will say. If you could, just because I think it's really important for us to get to going through this article, because then you might be able to explain why you view it as anti-Semitism. If you could just give us what you are saying the current definition of anti-Semitism is today, that would be very helpful.
The current definition of anti-Semitism today has to do with what the feelings are. It has to do with anti-Zionism, number one. That is a definition. Anti-Zionism, anti-Israel is anti-Semitism.
Psychologist. So, yeah, I probably struggle with psychology.
Huh? What'd you say? It mutates. It changes. That's not a definition. That sounds like a luxury to me. It sounds like to me you're able to use that definition to throw it out whenever you want. When anybody ever criticizes a Jewish person, it's a mutating definition, and no, majority of the Jewish community accepts that. A majority of the scholars accept. What are you talking about, brother? And Candace Owens is such a brilliant human being. She knows how to go to the comments. She knows that most people see the hypocrisy. She knows that most of the people see through these people's craziness, bro. When they get on here and debate these silly topics, a lot of the Jewish community don't agree with what that rabbi said. Not to mention, that Rabbi Barclay, is defending another rabbi and his daughter, who, by the way, sells butt plugs. Did you hear what I just said? A rabbi. If you don't know what rabbi means, and because according to this rabbi, you can't define what rabbi means either, unless you're an actual rabbi, unless you're from Israel, unless you're from their religion. Otherwise, you can't say what's holy and what's unholy. I don't think you need to be a rabbi. I don't think you need to be a Jew. I don't think you need to be from Israel to agree that selling butt plugs is probably unholy. Selling butt plugs with your daughter is probably unholy, let alone weird and strange and confusing. Why aren't y'all calling him out for that? Let's talk about that. But let's talk about something else that's really weird about the Daily Wire that I noticed months ago. First and foremost, Candace Owens is the only person of color over there. Candace Owens, as I understand, is only one of 2 women that works there. Now you say, well, they're conservatives. They don't believe that you should hire people based on race and gender. Yeah, I don't believe that you should hire people based on race and gender either. The purpose of me mentioning that is because I'm a human being. I have eyeballs. And when you look at their lineup, if you will, over there at the Daily Wire, it's very noticeable and it's very obvious that it's mostly white men. You're going to say, well, Ben Shapiro isn't white. He's a Jew. Stop it. He's a white Jew. How about that? That's a white person, bro. To most of the rest of the world, especially the black community, Hispanic community, you're a white person, Ben Shapiro. And you know you can pass as a white person. You're a white person. That was one of the very first things that always stood out to me. The second thing that stood out to me about the Daily Wire was that it seemed that nobody over there during this entire time ever stood up for Candace Owens. Nobody. And there's always been, for me personally, you all don't have to agree, this weird dynamic between Candace Owens and Matt Walsh. Why? Why do I say those 2 names? Because they're 2 of the more popular people over there at the Daily Wire. I would argue that, Candace Owens, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro are probably at the top of that hierarchy. And then the other young lady that's over there, I can't think of her name, but the one that looks just like Ben Shapiro. They're all pretty popular. The other guy, Jeremy or Andrew, whatever his name is, he isn't as popular. Matt Walsh had the What is a Woman documentary, #1 documentary in the world, I believe just 2 years ago. Then Candace Owens had the Black Lives Matter documentary, right? So they've made probably the biggest noise over there at the Daily Wire. And they're probably the most controversial most times, Matt Walsh and Candace Owens. But if you notice, Matt Walsh never makes videos in collaboration with Candace Owens. He never refers to Candace Owens in any way on his channel. But Candace Owens refers to Matt Walsh on her channel. She gives Matt Walsh credit on her channel. She refers to him and collaborates with him in different ways on her channel, but it's never the other way around. It's weird to me. I noticed that dynamic a while ago. And doing this whole Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens feud, if that's what you like to call it, over the past 6 months, nobody has spoken up in any type of way to take a side. You say, well, they should let these 2 adults figure it out. Well, not even just that. I'll go a step further. When it comes to the Israel-Hamas war, you notice that other people aren't saying much. Why is that? Is it because of the very things that Candace Owens has said?
Going to be honest with you, because everybody's noticing it. Every single political commentator in America, every single one of them knows this, that if you do not step out and say things that are radically pro-Israel, or if you are too quiet on certain narratives and they want you to be radically pro-Israel, you can lose everything. That's truth. That is a fact. I'm not feeling like I need to hide from that anymore or be afraid to say it, rather, is a better way to say it, because I've endured this for years.
Let me just say this. Candace Owens has more balls than any man that I know. Did you hear what I just said? She has more balls than any man that I know. Why? One, I believe that she truly speaks her mind, even when it's uncomfortable for those that she works with. She speaks her mind, even if it's uncomfortable for those that already support her. She claims that she follows God. And based on the things that I see that she does, now she does insert herself into a lot of situations that many people could argue that could be easily avoidable. But that's part of her job, to look at the things in the world, call out the evil for what it is, right? The Most High, if you're quiet about the things that are happening in the world that are evil, you're just as complicit, right? So I don't necessarily blame her for inserting herself in things and calling evil evil, right? You don't have to be associated with something to be able to call it evil. That's my opinion. And the purpose of this microphone, just once again, is because I want the people in the back to hear me. First, I want to speak to the black community. A lot of you all don't even listen to Candace Owens. A lot of times what you all do is you listen to what someone else said Candace Owens has said. So let me take this moment in this video to actually tell you some of the things that Candace Owens has said. She's called out the black community for our hypocrisy. She's called out the black community for our ungodliness. She's called out the black community for not believing in ourselves as much, blaming too much stuff and giving too much credit to the white man, right? And a lot of people say, well, she said that racism isn't real. She's never said that. If you actually listen to what this woman has said, then a lot of you all may be more conservative than you realize. Candace Owens, in my opinion, has been for the black community. It's just she's not going to pamper you and tell you things that you want to hear. The purpose of this microphone is also for people like Megyn Kelly.
There's been a weird rift between them over Israel that's been a growing source of discomfort for many of us watching it, where she's gone more and more, it seems to me, pro-Palestine, accusing Israel of a genocide. And everyone knows Ben's history and his connection with Israel and how he's been one of the leading voices to contextualize what Israel is and what has happened to it here and how wrong it is.
And all these other Dave Rubin or whatever his name is, the people that want to mischaracterize the things that Candace Owens has actually said. Megyn Kelly gets up there and says that she's pro-Palestine. What are you talking about? As much as you want to lie on the things that Candace Owens has actually said, and I've been critical of Candace Owens on this channel, but I'm never going to mischaracterize and lie about the things that the woman actually said. I agree with probably 95% of things that Candace Owens says. The woman is not pro-Palestine. She's pro-life. Did you hear what I just said? She's pro-innocent life. She's anti-war. There's a difference. Just because you say, and you're neutral, and you say innocent children on either side should not be slaughtered, you getting on your massive platform while talking to Jeremy Bowen, the COO over there at Daily Wire, and throwing in these little small lies like, she's pro-Palestine. You are a liar. She's not pro-Palestine. She's pro-life. And it's like all of a sudden when it's Israel involved, that goes out the window. What are we talking about here, bro? People should have saw this coming a mile away that she was going to be fired. People should have seen a mile away that she was going to quit, or they were going to have some sort of mutual understanding and just leave. Because the writing was on the wall. You can quickly understand who controls you by finding out who you can't criticize, right? The media does a lot of lying, especially when it comes to Candace Owens, and they misrepresent what she says. She said that Hitler was all right. Then she speaks to the rabbi and 100% proves that that's never what she said. The man still doubled down. You are an idiot. And a lot of you all that continue to support and run with this narrative about her being anti-Israel are either idiots or you're disingenuous, which makes you evil. It makes you evil. Don't trust the media, bro. Do not trust the media. I seen this quote one time that always stuck with me. If you do not watch the media, if you do not read the newspaper, you are uninformed. If you do watch the media, if you do read the newspaper, you are now misinformed. But I'm glad Candace Owens is no longer over there, and I will continue to support her. Hop in the comment section and give me your thoughts. It's funny, you can criticize black people, even LGBT, on the right at the very least. Black people, LGBTQ, you can criticize all sorts of people. The moment you start criticizing Israelites, or not Israelites, people from Israel, Jews, it's a big problem, right? If it's a gang, if it's a group of black people, it's a gang. If it's a group of Italian people, it's a mob. But if it's a group of Jews, it's a coincidence and you should never speak about it. Wow.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.